of the Ayurvedic Guide to Fertility, and I'm so excited to talk with you today and introduce you to Jane Austen. Jane is a very experienced prenatal yoga teacher. She's been working with pregnant women and their families since 1990. She's a certified yoga teacher and a trainer. She's the founder and director of Mama Tree, which is a prenatal yoga school dedicated to educating yoga teachers, doulas, midwives on how to use the tools of yoga to support pregnant women and new moms in all stages of childbirthing year and beyond. So she weaves in her experience as a midwife, doula, childbirth educator, and also a mother into her own work. So she has a prenatal yoga teacher training program, and it attracts students from all over the world who are interested in learning how to utilize the practice of yoga to support pregnant and new moms physically, mentally, and emotionally. Welcome, Jane.
Hey, that sounds cool.
Yeah, that really does.
Who is that lady?
Yeah, you sound super cool. So Jane, I want to tell you how I sort of came across you. I'm publishing this book, The Ayurvedic Guide to Fertility, but I've been talking with a lot of people in the fertility space, but I've known of you for many years because I used to live on Valencia Street, a couple of blocks away from the yoga studio where you've been teaching for many, many years. And I know that Jane Austen's the lady that all the women go to in San Francisco when they're pregnant for prenatal yoga. And when I lived in that neighborhood, I wasn't pregnant. I had moved to the marina. And when I was pregnant in the marina, I was actually too lazy to go to the mission to go through the traffic at the time of your class. But I remembered you, and I sort of, I would have, if I lived in the mission, sort of started to live my life in a way where I didn't actually want to leave my neighborhood and deal with traffic, I found as I got closer to 40. So I've known of you for a long time, and I would come to a yoga class after your, I think your postnatal class, where the mom strollers are all in there, and I'd be, I didn't know anything about having babies or whatever, but I would see all the strollers out there, and it was very mysterious what was going on in there. And I was just there to do like some chaturangas or something. So I wanted to, so I've known who you are for a long time, and I know we've just recently, connected. And so I wanted to tell you that background, but I'd love to hear from you. I obviously know who you are, but I'd love to hear a little bit about the work that you do and kind of how you got into this work.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me, Heather. I'm delighted to be here with you, and your book is awesome. I haven't gotten all the way through it, but it is really cool, and I'm really grateful that you're out there doing the work and supporting women and mamas and supporting women to get pregnant. So it's a thrill for me to chat with you as well. And I love chatting with women. Dudes too, but I'm really
yeah.
I made a boy, I'm married to a man, but I like the ladies. So I basically discovered what a midwife was in 1989. And I was like, what is that? I just moved to San Francisco. I graduated from college. I was in my early 20s. And I was like, what is that? And so I went to this event and I met this midwife. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to start being a doula. So I was a doula, then trained as a midwife, went to a birth center in Texas, then got pregnant, and then worked at a home birth practice in San Francisco. Then I got pregnant myself, and kind of spent my really formative young adult years working with pregnant women. And the yoga was sort of in the background. I'd been to some of the ashrams in the city, and it wasn't until I got pregnant with my first child, she's 22 now, that I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, this is it for me, because I fell in love with yoga. I'd been working with women for all this time, and then the truth is I couldn't really find a yoga class that was exactly what I needed. I mean, I liked it, but I was like, I think there could be a more, I don't know if holistic is the right word, but really bringing together my absolute two passions. And one of that is just like a profound trust of pregnant women. And, you know, from the midwifery perspective, I brought that into my prenatal classes. So I started teaching prenatal yoga before I even did a teacher training, which is unheard of. Not even a prenatal training, any training. I gave the owner of Yoga Tree a resume and said, like, this is my yoga experience, this is my midwifery experience. And the bottom was like, and I want to teach prenatal yoga.
Was that Tim then?
That was, yeah, it was Tara Dale. Tara interviewed me. Yeah. So I'm forever grateful to Tara and Tim for, this is the Yoni sign. So I'm gonna love you. Yoni love. So, yeah, so I'm forever grateful for them because they supported me in my early teaching. And then, you know, after teaching for about a year, I'm like, well, I think I better do a training. So I did a 200-hour training, which was, you know, mind-blowing and fabulous at the time. So really what brought me into it was my love of working with the mamas, the prenatal, and then using yoga as preparation for childbirth, and then into that postpartum period. So it was kind of it's like a natural marriage. And then from there, I decided to develop my own teacher training based on what I had been teaching, because the truth is nobody was teaching the way I was teaching. I was doing something that was kind of not entirely new. I mean, there's people who've been doing prenatal yoga for a long time, but the tapestry that I wove together was kind of its own thing. And that's how Mama Tree was born. So Mama Tree was born out of teaching at Yoga Tree. That's kind of the connection with the names. And I've just been doing it ever since. So I've trained thousands and thousands of people to either teach prenatal yoga, or like you said in the intro, I do a, you know, perinatal component of many teacher trainings. So I just did one on Friday, and that's super fun too. So that's just educating yoga teachers to know what to do when the pregnant lady walks into their like general yoga class, their vinyasa flow class. So that's a little bit different than prenatal yoga. Prenatal yoga is kind of its own animal, but I've been doing, you know, those trainings for many years now. So it's always fun for me. I never get bored of it. I'm always super excited and enthusiastic.
That's awesome. So I know, because, well, I taught yoga for 10 years and I never officially taught prenatal. I was always more interested in what happened before you got pregnant than when you were pregnant, probably because I had never been pregnant, and I never wanted to I never wanted to teach things that I hadn't personally experienced. That was something that was weird, that I've had this weird thing with that. So, you know, when you get a woman that comes to prenatal yoga, is it a woman that, I'm assuming it's mostly women, right? Do men ever come?
They sometimes come in. Nobody's ever not invited. Yeah. So I never kick anybody out. So yeah. So yeah. But I don't have there's some prenatal classes that are like partners invited. Yeah. So if a woman has a female partner or a non-binary partner, I'm happy with that, for sure. And I don't kick dudes out, but I also want women to feel safe to talk about maybe really intimate things that are happening. Maybe something's happening, you know, in her pelvis, and she's not going to say that, you know, in a room with a dude is in it. So it's definitely mostly women. I've had pregnant women, or pregnant people, excuse me, that aren't female identified, so are male identified. So that was an interesting thing, and mindful of language, of course. But yeah, it's been mostly the vast majority women. I do teach a workshop for women and their partners though, and I did that this weekend, and that's super fun as well. And that's basically helping the partners figure out how to be helpful in labor and not be useless.
That's awesome. So when a woman comes, mostly women, right? We'll just say, when a woman comes to your class, have most of them done yoga before? Like, what % of them have never done yoga when they come?
It's actually pretty common. So I would say that the yoga students are really mixed. It's a really mixed bag. There are definitely people that have never done yoga before, and their midwife or their OB says, oh, try yoga. It will, help with some of the discomfort. So they kind of come into the studio, gingerly kind of come in and never done yoga before. It's really common that women have done yoga in the past, but don't have a strong active practice. Now, I do get the yoginis coming in, but they usually, honestly, don't come in until the latter part of their pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of that is a misconception or perception about what prenatal yoga is. And maybe some people do teach it in a way that it would correlate with gentle yoga, but prenatal yoga that I teach is not gentle yoga. There's a gentle component to it, but motherhood's not gentle. So I don't know why preparation for it would be a gentle practice. It's a really strengthening practice. So it's kind of the balance of building strength, building stamina, building power, and also within that being able to soften and release and let go. So it's not all soften and release and let go. You gotta build strength or maintain the strength that you have. So the yoginis will sometimes come in at the very end, and then more often than not, more often than not, they're like, oh, I wish I had started this earlier, because it's not just like pushing a pregnant body, forcing a pregnant body in a practice that actually wasn't designed for her. And you can do that. You can modify a practice for sure. And many people do, and that's not a problem. But the prenatal classes, the postures specifically are designed for pregnant women's bodies. And then a huge piece of it is having other women around you, so you don't feel crazy. When you're pregnant and got stuff going on in your body, and maybe you're the first of your friends who's gotten pregnant before, and you don't really want to tell anybody about labial swelling, and there's all kinds of things that happen. And the prenatal classes, there is an opportunity to share and build community. And mamas tell me all the time that their best mama friends they met in those early years, they met when they did prenatal yoga. So I'm like,
yeah,
cool.
So now that we're here in this situation, which obviously is going to change and we don't know when, but being home and all of the yoga classes going on to an online platform, be it Zoom or whatever, how has that changed the experience for you as a teacher guiding them, and also for the students? What's everybody going through?
Well, I mean, you can imagine, and you also with a small child at home, there's a certain vulnerability that we experience when we're, pregnant, that new motherhood, and even, with a 3-year-old running around. So I think it's been really, really challenging. I think that this pandemic is definitely going to change the landscape of prenatal yoga, because I'm not really sure when the moms are going to want to come into a yoga studio. And a lot of the yoga tree classes are really popular. I mean, I teach and have historically taught Saturday classes with 50 pregnant ladies, 50. So is that ever going to happen again? And for me personally, it's kind of fun teaching a class that's big, but that's big like that, but it's not as intimate as I like. We'll probably be doing some social distancing stuff, and still, when the studios open up, and we'll see if the ladies come back into the studio. I'm definitely planning on continuing teaching on Zoom. I like this platform in particular because it's interactive. I was teaching on YouTube, where it was still live streaming, but it wasn't interactive. I couldn't see my students. And I just really didn't like that. I'm not going to continue to do it this way. I'm not teaching like a fitness class. The whole point of me teaching is to be able to connect to my students, to educate them, for them to be connected to one another. So that one-way platform didn't work at all. So now all my classes are on Zoom in this interactive platform. So I actually keep my screen on gallery, and I scroll through women and I look at their postures and make sure that they're doing things safely, you know, as opposed to just, you know, seeing myself in a screen. I know what I look like doing yoga, so I don't really need that. So
Yeah.
it's been really fun, and I've definitely been working with women all over the world. I've got women who Zoom in from Italy. I got an Irish gal right now. I got people from the Midwest. I got people from Southern California. So it's really fun. So I teach, let's see, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I teach a 10:30 a.m. class, and then a postnatal class right after that. And then Saturday, I also teach at 10:30 on Saturday, and then Wednesday evening at 5 p.m. So I added a PM class because if the mamas are working from home full time, they often will, you know, they can't really necessarily get away for a 10:30 class if they've got, you know, Zoom meetings, which is what most of us are doing all the time for work, or a lot of people are.
So now that because that, what you mentioned earlier, that component of the community building aspect of the yoga class, like, I mean, I remember the prenatal classes I took before having my child, that I definitely stayed friends, because when you're pregnant, you want to have people around you who are going through a similar thing.
Yeah.
I find that a lot of your friendships kind of fall off, and you get new friendships because you're going through this new shared experience together. So I found that I have stayed friends with so many of those women that I met during my pregnancy. How are you able to foster those connections now? Is that possible with the platforms that you're using?
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit trickier. One of the things I do is that I open up my room early. So, and I basically open it up 10, 15 minutes before the class starts, and then I wait. And the mamas that, at least what I've gleaned so far, is that the mamas who kind of want to connect to other mamas pop in early, or they stay after. I definitely stay after, and people ask me questions, and it's kind of like, it happens at the yoga studio too. I usually am at the studio a good half hour after class, just answering questions and giving referrals from midwives or doulas, you know, hooking people up with chiropractors or whatever she's looking for, you know, acupuncturists or Vedic practitioners. So yeah, it's a little bit trickier, because I think that, you know, sometimes people just pop in and then pop out. So I always say, is there anyone new to my class? Unmute yourself and just tell us who you are. And then, you know, as the ladies are all popping up, you know, the squares are starting to pop up on the room, I'll say, does anyone else want to say hi? And they'll just, you know, pop in and say hi. So the people that are a little bit more extroverted are the ones that tend to like unmute themselves and say hi. So it's a little harder for me to kind of pull people in. I'm pretty good at getting people to, you know, to like, they introduce themselves, but I also, one of the things that I've just done through all these years is to make everybody feel really comfortable and everybody to feel really seen. So if somebody pops in that I haven't seen, I might call them out. And I might say, hey, Heather, have you been to my class before? And she might have kept herself on mute. And then she'll, you know, I can see her sort of sheepishly like, no, I've never been before. So I do try to foster that a little bit, but it's certainly trickier because they're all looking at me. And they might have the gallery up, but, you know, I'm the one talking. And so it's definitely trickier, but, you know, we're figuring it out. Heather, I think you lost your internet connection. Rats. Hey, Leo. Leo, I'm live. I hope you're going to come back, Heather.
Okay. We're back. That's great.
You're back. Okay.
I'm back. Yeah, exactly. So I know a lot of the women come later, right? So they're coming at different phases of their pregnancy. But do you have
Yeah.
a sense of, because my book's about how women prepare for conception, right? So I
Mhm.
remember way before I wrote this book, and I thought about taking a prenatal yoga teacher training, and I was like, I definitely am interested in the pregnancy part and the having babies part, but I'm more interested in the what happens leading up to that. And
Yeah.
so there wasn't, like, fertility yoga wasn't really a thing when I was looking at, and I think maybe it's always been, there are a few people that have done it, but it's not been like a popular thing the way that prenatal yoga has been,
Yeah.
because it's an actual event that people have to respond to, I think, with prenatal, and there's a clear new need, I think. um, but I did wonder, like, should I go to a prenatal class and see, like, because I'm thinking about becoming pregnant. Do you ever have women come to prenatal yoga who are wanting to conceive a child? Does that ever happen?
Yeah, I have non-pregnant people in my class all the time, and for varying reasons. It can be somebody who's trying to get their pregnant friend to a yoga class, and she may not be pregnant herself, but she's like, "I'll go with you." And and then inevitably the pregnant gal keeps coming and her friend, doesn't. Or, your sister's in from out of town. At the end of the pregnancy, when often family comes in, family support. So mothers or mother-in-laws will sometimes come to the classes, which is super, super sweet. People come observe the class if they want to. So this is my thing. If somebody wants to observe the class, they have to do one of two things. If they're not one of my trainees, right? They either have to pay for the class, or they have to stay and hold babies at the postnatal class, which is right after. So, because people, I mean, you can imagine, I've been doing this for a long time. People want to just like come in and watch my class. Well, okay, but that's like a one-way thing. So you can either pay me, or preferably you'll stay and help out with those little babies. And pretty much always people are able to, like, okay, let me rearrange my schedule and I'll stay and hold babies. And then from my perspective, I'm like, yeah, you can observe my class. You can even take my class. If you'd rather take it than observe it, if you stay and hold babies, you don't have to pay for it. And that's true for pregnant women as well. So I have a standing offer. If a pregnant woman, has some flexibility in her schedule and she wants to do the prenatal class, she can stay and hold babies at the postnatal class, and the prenatal class is free.
That's
So
awesome.
it's kind of it's just kind of a sweet thing, a sweet way to kind of encourage her to sort of check out the postnatal class. And I've had women, I've had a couple of like pretty young women, like early 20s. I had a 19-year-old gal once, sort of unexpectedly pregnant, and she came and held babies through her whole pregnancy, through her entire pregnancy, and got free yoga the whole time. So it works like kind of financially for some people, but for her, it was she like, by the time she was going to give birth, she had so much more confidence in her competence to mother.
Yeah,
And it was so cool to kind of witness her sort of like, oh my God, I'm pregnant, come to the prenatal classes. And by the end, she had held many, 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 many babies. And it was such a cool thing. And sometimes women just want to check it out. Like, what's it like? Because I teach the two classes back to back, so
yeah,
prenatal and then postnatal. So they see each other, right? They're like crossing. So the pregnant ladies are leaving the yoga studio and the strollers are coming in. So sometimes they'll just do it once or twice, which I'm just always grateful to have extra pair of hands. So that's a standing offer, whether you're whether you're pregnant, or you're somebody interested in doing my training, or just, a friend who's coming along for the ride with her friend. So it's
that's
not that
amazing.
uncommon. And I like it. And I have had women who are trying to get pregnant come into the class, just to get a little bit of juju. But honestly, that doesn't last very long if the woman's having a hard time getting pregnant, because the last thing she wants to do is be in a room full of women who have what she wants most than anything in the whole world.
Yeah, of
So
course.
I've had people come in like just a couple times when they're like, oh, we went off contraception. So
Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering if, I know that a lot of prenatal yoga teachers have been interested in my book in terms of, if I look at all the people that I've discussed my book with, I find a lot of excitement from the prenatal teachers, and the everybody gets to becoming pregnant in a different way, right? So some people plan it, some people don't plan it, some people have the doctors do it. There's all different ways to do it, but I kind of view it all as like this pipeline where, there's the before, there's the during, there's the after. And do you get a sense, because of you spend so much time with women in that time leading up to them becoming a mother, so there's that great transition, you're on one side or you're on the other side of it, right? There's that great transition that's happening. Do you get a sense of how well people prepare their lives, their bodies, for becoming a mother? Do you get a sense of?
You mean before pregnancy or during pregnancy?
Before.
I can get a sense of it just from what women tell me in their stories. If a woman's experienced multiple miscarriages, she may not show up for prenatal yoga until like well into her second trimester, just for the fear of the loss of the pregnancy. So if she shares that with me, I get a little bit of a window into her journey. So I always try to kind of connect with women before they take my class, so that I can sort of see a little bit about what their yoga experience is, and what number pregnancy is this, or and those kind of questions I actually like to ask in private, because if a woman has experienced a pregnancy loss, then she can say that to me in private. But I can also just be really mindful of my language and speaking to her. It's funny, one of your questions was about a mantra. And we always chant this one sutra from Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. It's Vishokavajo Tishmati. And that speaks about a light within our hearts. And, we have that radiance in our hearts that shines like beyond any sadness. It breaks through grief and darkness. So we chant, and when we're pregnant, obviously we all carry our light inside of us. That's called the Jyoti. But when you're pregnant, you hold the light of another person. And, if I know that a woman has experienced some loss of a pregnancy, just reminding her that she can feel a little bit of the radiance of that light from a lost pregnancy, from a wanted lost baby, right? So, even in the postnatal class, we offer that light to maybe a woman who's experiencing sadness or grief around motherhood. And it could be from loss, but it could be from anxiety and depression. We certainly know that we have an epidemic of that in our culture, of women being really isolated and having really high rates of mood disorders throughout pregnancy, but certainly into that postpartum period. So something as beautiful and simple as a reminder of this light that shines beyond sorrow is really sweet. So we chant it in every single class.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I don't know if you came across this word, because both yoga and Ayurveda come from the same, country, the same spiritual tradition, same culture. The word kshetra, the field, which is the word for the uterus, which is the place where a person will take a pilgrimage. So you'll make a pilgrimage to the uterus. So and we've all done it. You've done it, and I've done it. Our parents did it. So every person who's here has done it. Even people who, were here only temporarily or didn't fully form have taken that pilgrimage, right? So I love that.
I talk about that. I tell women that they've got to go get their baby. They got to go inside. The labor is not some terrible thing that happens to them, but it is their work to go retrieve their baby. And, you know, there's this beautiful poem, it's called Birthright, and I'm just paraphrasing it, but the author speaks about, you know, men, in order to find themselves, they go into nature, you know, they're 40 days in the desert, or they climb a freaking mountain, or whatever they do, right? Women do that too, of course. But that's like men go into nature to find themselves. And the words are that we are nature as women. And to find ourselves, we can just go inside. So I remind moms that they are nature and they can go inside and get their baby. So I love that concept of pilgrimage to the womb. It's like, yeah, I know. And I tell women, you get there by, like, you know, you can make a sound path all the way down. As you exhale, drop down into your belly. I tell mamas to make a sound tunnel for their baby to pass through, so they know where to go, and whether they use sound goes into the womb, and then the sound goes down through their yonis and out. So sometimes we do that in class.
No, I love that you're bringing up sound. I experienced a lot of, you know, before I conceived, a lot of odd things with sound, like me just wanting to make certain sounds I'd never made before in my yoga practice, because I was that yogini that stayed at home and didn't go to her, you know, prenatal yoga class because she thought she knew how to do yoga. Which I know how to do yoga. I don't need somebody else.
Well, I'm sure you know how to do chaturanga.
Yeah, so it's, you know, like the sound piece is so interesting, and especially because it's so connected with the energy of creation, is very mysterious. So I love that you're tapped into that. Is that something that you were taught, or is that something that you sort of?
No, that's just from being with women at birth. I mean, birth, if a woman's in an environment where she can do what she needs to do and not feel like she has to be contained, it gets really primal, you know, and the sounds that are most beneficial are those low, deep sounds that vibrate down through your body. I have been with women who have, like, moaned their babies out, who've roared their babies out, who've hummed their babies out. So it's something that I've always known from just being at birth. And, you know, we're not really a culture that does that, you know. It's like you're always supposed to be, like, very controlled, especially women.
Buttoned up.
And, yeah, totally. No way. So being able to kind of shed that and tap into that real primal place. I mean, you know, like, a lot of the poses we do in prenatal yoga are like on hands and knees, and you're moving your hips around. And when you're in that position, it actually opens up the pelvic outlet. When you're in that position, it's really hard, like hands and knees, it's really hard to grip your butt. Many women don't know that that's a super common position to birth a baby in. If a woman's in an environment where she is free to choose her birth position. So, I mean, I always tell my moms that really good question to ask your care provider is, am I free to birth in the position of my choice, right? And listening to the language of that, not like, oh, will you let me? It's like, oh, that's weird because you're a grown woman.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much. There's a great book by Angela Garbe called Like a Mother. And if she really, and this came out last year, it's actually a really great book. So she talks about, you know, when she got pregnant, she's like a science writer and professional woman, and she gets pregnant, and she says everyone starts treating her like an infant, like a baby, like she can't make decisions and choices for herself. And I think that happens a lot to women because we feel like, well, we'll just do what the doctor says and then everything's gonna be okay. And you actually don't get that guarantee. And for many women, all along the way, they get really disempowered, you know, and they move through their pregnancy from a perspective that they need to get information from somebody else, from an expert. And what I love so much about the prenatal practice is that it's really designed to help women attune to their own experience and make decisions and choices that are appropriate for her, and to trust her instincts, right? I mean, nowhere does it say, you know where it doesn't say trust your instincts? What to expect when you're expecting, right? That book does not say trust your instincts, right? It's very patriarchal model. And I think it's actually a perfect reflection of how pregnancy and childbirth and postpartum is handled in our culture, to the point that during this pandemic, so I collect that book. I collect what to expect when you're expecting. And then I have my students, if they give me that book, I'll give them a free yoga class. So I'm trying to get it out of the hands of as many pregnant ladies as possible.
What's a book you like better for pregnant women?
Oh, there's so many good ones. I mean, this, you know, Expecting Better, Thinking Women's Guide. I mean, there's all kinds of really good, Iname's Guide to Childbirth. Like, oh my God, like tap into that hippie stuff.
Do you think that this happens because, you know, even, you know, I was watching some of your prenatal yoga video earlier today, and like the language around softening the body and like, you know, allowing the body to be receptive. Do you think that women have a hard time finding that spot where they've let go of certain things, they've let go of allowed themselves to relax and release into what's happening through nature, but at the same time don't go too far so that you feel like you're a victim, or like in yoga speak, they'd say tamasic, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you think that women are just having a hard time finding that spot because it's not clear what level we're supposed to surrender to? Do you think there's some of that?
Well, yeah, I absolutely think it's cultural though, you know, because pregnancy has been so pathologized that women get pregnant and often feel kind of nervous, right? And the way that prenatal care is set up from obstetrical care, not from like a holistic midwifery model. I mean, I had my babies with midwives and I trained as a midwife, so that I kind of lean toward that holistic model of care. But the entire paradigm of the care is that your body is scanned for pathology. And then when you are deemed safe for your baby, your visit is over. It takes about 10 minutes. And there's very little regard for all the other changes that are happening in a woman's life. The physical part is just one component of the most emotional, mental, spiritual changes that are happening in herself, in her relationships to the people in her community, if she's in partnership, to her family of origin, to her family of choice. So I think because there's just this pathological scan, and then at the end of the pregnancy, there's this fear that you're dangerous for your baby and your baby needs to be rescued from your body. So we're going to induce you at such and such date so that baby can get out of there safely. So the entire languaging of pregnancy from sort of that Western obstetrical paradigm does not set women up to trust their instincts, does not give them agency to realize they have sovereignty over their own bodies, right? So we think that if we do everything that very prestigious doctor says, we get a guaranteed outcome. So like I said, you don't get that guarantee. You absolutely don't get that guarantee. But in the quest for that guarantee, that outcome that every single person wants, which is a healthy baby, they surrender everything else. They give away their power. They say they'll just do exactly what the doctor tells them to do. Now, I'm not telling a woman to go against medical advice, but we all know that there are many obstetrical practices that are not evidence-based practices. And they're practices that are happening for liability reasons, for the insurance company. There's other factors that are coming into play. Now you can tell I get really,
I love it. No, I'm
really excited about this. I'm like, because like, I mean, and obviously not every woman gets pregnant easily, right? And there's lots of support. And I think that, you know, if there's a medical, you know, if she has IVF or something like that, she might come into the pregnancy already kind of not really trusting her body's capacity to hold a pregnancy or to get pregnant. So I think it can be multi-layered. But what I do in my classes is I thread in, you know, and I'm not going to be like, obstetricians suck, you guys should all have your babies at home. Like, that's
especially not in San Francisco, because everybody's having them as geriatric.
Right. Yeah. For sure. And, you know, I just want women to feel good about their care and about their birth experiences, because birth matters. From my perspective, birth matters. You know, I'm a mother. I've got a 22-year-old and a 19-year-old. And, you know, I didn't surrender absolutely everything all the time for my children. You know, I didn't martyr myself for my children. Like, my needs were part of the equation. And I think that sometimes women sort of are encouraged to like martyr their experience, to just totally hand over their experience for this goal that she may or may not get. And, you know, I love in the yoga practice is that the languaging, how it's language. If you're feeling stronger today, maybe take this pose. If you're feeling a little fatigued, perhaps take this pose. So what I'm doing in the languaging is I'm just giving her options and letting her assess for herself what is appropriate. And that gives her that agency and that capacity to really pay attention to her body. And then from that place, maybe she does do, you know, warrior 3. Or from that place, maybe she says, hey, I'm going to hire a doula. Or, oh, wow, what does midwifery care look like? Oh, there's a birth center in San Francisco. So one of the things I do is I also educate them about birth options. I remember saying once, not that long ago, if you're interested in women-centered care, come talk to me after class. I'd be glad to talk to you about that. And I had women come up to me and like, what is women-centered care? And I'm like, oh, are you familiar with the midwifery model of care? There are midwives in the hospital. There are midwives at birth centers. There are midwives at home. I'd be glad to share.
And it'll be really interesting now because there's so many pregnant women that are afraid to give birth in the hospitals, that are trying to look for other options because of the pandemic.
Oh, there's definitely an increase in home births in San Francisco, for sure. The home birth practices are filling up. The birth center is full through the summer. So yeah, people are definitely looking for out-of-hospital birth experience because of COVID-19. But these also were people that were really good candidates to begin with. You know, it's not uncommon for a woman who maybe had a pretty...
Tipped her over.
What's that?
It just tipped her over the edge.
Yeah, tipped her over the edge. Like, she was maybe thinking about it, or, wow, she had a pretty straightforward birth the first time. Maybe I'll do a home birth this time. Yeah, it definitely has tipped women over the edge. So we're definitely seeing an increase. And, you know, I think that that's a really viable option for low risk women, for sure. So I love being able to educate women about what their options are. And it's really empowering when women step away from a model of care that they're not satisfied with and choosing something else. I mean, even just having that kind of like, oh, we're gonna go with the midwife. I'm like, right on.
Like anything you can do. Anything you could do to just wake up and pay attention in a way, right? Instead of just let the train come by and take you with it. So Jane, thank you so much. This has been so fun.
Yeah.
And I want to know, tell everybody how to get in contact with you.
Okay, well, I'm on, you can go to my website, janeaustenyoga.com, or Prenatal Yoga with Jane Austen on Facebook, or Jane Austen Yoga on Instagram. So I'm kind of out there, and I put out kind of fun stuff. I'm teaching Zoom classes, so if you're interested in pre and postnatal, just email me directly. You can go through my website or janeaustenyoga@gmail.com. I do a teacher training. So I do a Mama Tree Prenatal Yoga teacher training. I do that twice a year, and I am moving forward with an online version of it. I've been talking about doing it for a long time, and now I've got a little fire underneath my butt, and I think I'm gonna offer it virtually. So that's part of my pandemic getting stuff done.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
what
I've
fun to talk to you,
really
Heather.
enjoyed, I know it's been super fun. We could talk forever, I think. And
Absolutely. And if you want to, if anyone wants to come to my class and check it out, either, come check it out or stay and hold babies, and you can find me in San Francisco.
cool. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can, and my name's Heather Grzych, and you can check me out on heathergrzych.com. My last name is spelled Grzych.
I
And
know there's like hardly any vowels in there. I mean,
really
obviously there's a Y.
yeah, sort of a vowel. And I'm on Instagram as well for at heathergrzych.com. My book, The Ayurvedic Guide to Fertility, is now available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and IndieBound. So check it out.
Yay.